Hey Bethlehem. In this week's scripture, we hear Jesus ask his disciples this question: Who do you say I am? And Simon Peter responds by saying, You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Christ goes on to say to Peter that it is upon this rock, this confession of faith, I will build my church, and I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Now, it's interesting because in a span of just a few words, we have Christ speaking to Peter's confession regarding the foundation of the church, and then speaking directly to Peter by saying, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And then to cap it all off, Christ goes on to say, you know what? Don't tell anybody who I really am. Now think of this moment. Think of the power and authority that has just been given to Peter. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. No pressure there, right? But it's also at this moment where we as Christians, followers of Christ, need to ask a very important question. Just what kind of power and authority does the church really have? Now, power is not always a subject we like to address and openly talk about. In this world, we'd like to think that we have at least some power and authority over what happens in our own lives, and we could look at any of our lives and see different structures of power and authority at play. We could probably make even nice little diagrams and flowcharts to articulate these structures. And within all of that, there are moments where we feel powerless and other moments where we feel powerful. And through it all, we're also simultaneously needing to recognize the pitfalls that too much power can bring. Now, you've probably heard of quotes like, with great power comes great responsibility. Or the even more familiar, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So where does that leave us? Somewhere in the middle? Somewhere between powerful and powerless? Or is it more on the kind of power we as Christians choose to call upon? The kind of power that we are called to exercise in this world? Now, if you'll permit me for just a moment, to go outside our tradition and lift up a quote that has been attributed to Gandhi. It goes like this: Power is of two kinds. One is obtained by fear and punishment, and the other by acts of love. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than the one derived from fear of punishment. Did you hear it? Power based on acts of love. Now let us take that and look at the gospel narrative. Starting at Christ's humble birth in a manger, to Christ's ministry and service, to Christ getting on his own hands and knees to wash the feet of his disciples, to Christ offering himself, going all the way to death on the cross for us. The power we as Christians hear about in the gospel narrative is not the power over other things or other people, but rather the power to. The power to humble ourselves before others, the power to serve others, the power to do acts of love, kindness, and compassion that all point back to God's love. And for me, that's the importance of this scripture and this message this day. Our very foundation, our strength, and yes, even our power comes from our ability to love. Now, there's a reason why the classic hymn isn't called "And They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Power." Sounds a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? Or at least I hope it does. Rather, the hymn goes, "And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love." Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. So that is my prayer this day, for all of us and for our entire world, is that we may lean into the strength, the strong foundation, the rock, and yes, the power that comes from loving God and loving others as God first loved us.